So you've been using the new macro creator and you've seen Tida's controls editor, or you've seen the controls editor, QMap editor in the code or in the tool, and you're not too sure how to use it yet. Let me teach you how to use this because it's not as hard as it may look to begin with. So to start off, there's two ways to access the QMap editor. For one, there's the way to access it straight in here in the UI when you have it already open. You can come on up here to add and then come up here to open controls editor. This is Tida's controls editor. Open this and you get access to all the controls right here. By default, it's going to select whatever node is selected in red, and that's going to be the node that all of your controls you make with this will be going on to. So it uses the same method that I use to add controls on there to add to the UI. An important note for this tool is none of the controls you make with this will be going on to the UI, so this is its own separate thing. This is designed for you to put your main UI over here in grab mode, pull out your controls editor here, and you can see all of your controls here, and you can start adding stuff onto here. Another way to open up the UI for this is to go, let me go ahead and close this, go up here to workspace, scripts, and then in the same folder where you find the new macro creator main file, you're also going to find change macro type and then a files, scripts, and then you'll find the QMap quick editor. This is the exact same thing and it functions the exact same way. It'll just focus on whatever is selected in red. All right, that's cool. We can go and drag it over here. It'll always end up in the very center of your screen, at least fingers crossed, that should be how it is. But let's go and take a look at how to actually start adding stuff onto here. We can see this is the controls. This is saying controls. It's not just saying, oh, this is just for all your controls. It's super fun. This is the controls node. So it takes whatever name it is. And you can also reselect a different node, press tool, and it will bring in all the information for that new tool. So you don't have to keep closing it and reopening it to keep reselecting a tool. So really cool. Let's jump down to the bottom down here to all of our drop downs. We don't have to worry about any of these buttons yet. First, let's take a look at page. So page will by default take in whatever page is on the node, and it will also give you the option to add it to a user page. So if we open up page down here, we'll see it has common, which is just your settings page, and it has the user page, which is this. And even if the node that you're looking at doesn't have a user page, like this merge node here, if you press tool, you'll still see a user page just because I like to give you that option. This isn't actually default in Tida's QMap editor that he sells and gives away. But I figured I'd add that so it's a little more user-friendly for people who want to make macros and like have all that stuff separated out into its own thing. You can also make your own page names in this too by just changing the name here. Super quick and easy. Let's go back into our controls node here. We can either select a control from the dropdown from either ID or name. For some reason, name gives you all of the controls and ID just gives you the user control. If you want to add a control, first off, we start off by adding a name or an ID. Probably smarter to just go ahead and do the name so you can easily tell what the ID is doing afterwards. So let's go ahead and change the name or set the name. Let's just make this a test control, right? And as we start adding stuff in here, we'll see it's going to want to autofill. So if we type in T, it's going to want to autofill the title. But if we type in test, that's good. And if we click off of this text field, we're going to see the ID fills with text. If we had a space in here, and we just called this like slider and then clicked off of this, we'll see it doesn't change the ID anymore because that's what the ID is set to. But if we closed this, and let's just reopen it really quickly to show you. And if we type in our name again, now if we were to click off of this name section, it's going to fill in the ID with an underscore in the space of the space. So the value is organized and it includes a bunch of different things in its terminology here. So you open the drop down and you see this big list of confusing combination of letters, words, and numbers. If we look at these are just the default numbers these are going to be set to. So if you set this to 50 and you make a slider called test whatever, that slider is going to be set to 50 when you add it in there. When it comes to this is saying, is this number an integer? And what is the width of the control? So let me go and break down what these all mean then. Because if you can tell what this means, you can probably tell what the ending of these mean. But let me explain this whole thing. So first off, this first number, this is the min value. This is the lowest that your value can go. This is the center value. So this is whatever the center point of your slider is. And if there is no center point, then it's gonna usually just default to 0, I think. And then also what is the max value of this slider button, whatever you're making. And then is it an integer, true or false? And what's the width, 0 to 1. As you can see, there's a bunch of different presets in here for a bunch of different control types. But if we go ahead and leave it blank, it's gonna autofill with whatever it suggests as the default. So let's go ahead and start looking at these up here now. if we were to have a name and ID in here, and we have a page that we want this to go on, so let's put it on the user page, and we select one of these buttons, it's going to create a control with whatever you selected with the information you have built into it. So let's say you want to make a test slider. If we were to click on slider now, we'll see it refreshes the node and gives us test slider. And it defaults to this value right here of 0, 0, 1, false 1, meaning that it's not an integer, so that means you have the decimal point. It's a width of 1, so it's the full width. It has a max of 1 and a min of 1, and center is 0.5, but for some reason all of their centers are 0. So I don't know if that just doesn't work how it's intended, or if they just prefer everything being 0 and 1, or maybe I just have that thing wrong. I thought that's what I saw in the code. Maybe I saw that incorrectly. But with the same exact control selected, we can select a different button up here to actually change its type. So if we come up here to screw, it's going to change the slider to a screw. Or if we change it to an offset, it's going to make it an offset. Or a 3D slider, which will literally create a folder or a nest with 3 controls in there. And if we hover over them and look in the bottom left, they have the ID plus the different coordinate, which is super easy. Let's go and hop out of this, because then now if we started changing this, it wouldn't actually work right, because this is more than one control. But if we open up the QMap editor again, it's okay to close the window. This does not actually need that window to be open. So if you don't need to actually be using it, you can, I guess, close it. But otherwise, we can also come into name and select existing control. So if we look through here, we can probably find some, but it looks like these may actually be some default names actually. I thought these were names from the node, but I think these are actually just default names. And you have the user controls right here. So if we were to take main transform right here, it gives us the name, which has all of the HTML styling to make it that color. We can then keep it on the user page, but we can turn it into whatever we want. Like we can turn it into a text box. And we just created a brand new text box with this as its part of its ID. That might actually be a bug, because it's not taking the ID from this. That's not supposed to happen, I don't think. So that maybe needs to be looked at from Tida. And I might update this in the future, or even just fix this for Tida for my version. But you can see it creates a new text box with the information, and it chose 3 as its default value. I think that's because that's how many lines it is inside of here. So each of these different controls has its own kind of context for value, but generally, if it's not a standard slider, it's going to be a single number. For this case, it's pretty obvious. There's 3 lines, there's a 3 in here now. This is going to set how many lines it is. So let's set this to 5, and we update this text again. Now it's 5 lines. Pretty self-explanatory. Some of these things may be a little bit more confusing than other things, but nonetheless, it's not too difficult. We're also able to move controls up and down. So we have the control selected. We have this selected right here. We can move it up, and it will actually try to move it upward, but it may not move up correctly this time. So let's actually really quick, I'm going to set up a little situation for us. So I went ahead and created this little situation here for us. For some reason, it does create a label for the text box. That's definitely not what I expected it to do, but nonetheless, it's not the biggest deal. If we were to move example 2 up and down, if we look at it, this is now what we're currently controlling. We're not actually controlling the text box right now, because the text box is just called text. If you look in the bottom left, we can see it has the same ID, but instead it just has text in its name instead of the actual ID. So what we have to do is move up, and we're going to see it actually moves the label above this slider now. So we can see we can move all of these controls up and down really, really quick and easy. Or we can come into here and just straight up delete and clean types. So if we come into here and clean types, I don't really see much of a difference. It does reselect everything, which is interesting. So I don't really know what that does off the top of my head, but it does something. And I just would need to check with Tida for that. But if you know what that means, feel free to use it. But otherwise, you can just delete the control, and whatever you have selected, it's just gone now. Super easy to do. Some of these things, I don't know exactly what they do specifically, but Tida seems to know. If you have any questions, please direct them specifically to Tida. My UI and some of my functionality is slightly different than Tida's, because I slightly customized it to work for this. Like, for example, you can't make buttons and other things with this version of Tida's control editor. But if you want the full version of Tida's control editor, just go get it from Tida. But his also does not allow you to have the user page in your selection here. I added that in there just because I knew that's going to be probably pretty common. But of course, if you just want to donate to him, feel free to. Tida's letting me use this for free, and it's letting you guys use all of this for free. Super nice of him, super cool. You're able to get this in the light and the pro version. Super, super easy to use. So yeah, go check it out and let me know what you think. I'll see you guys in the next tutorial. So go check out more stuff about the new macro creator down below. All right, I'll see ya.